Okay, so now we're working on 4.6, which is the back side of the handout that I had given you the other class. Before we even get started, we need to talk about what consecutive integers are. We all should know what an integer is by now, right? And I'm just going to use an example. So would you say 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on? They're integers and they're consecutive. That means one after another. So if I were to say x, I'm going to let x equal 1, then I'd have to add 1 to that x to make it 2. Okay? So let's use that as an example. So let's look at number 1. And let's not forget those consecutive integers. It says find two consecutive integers whose sum is 75. So what we're going to do, I know you can guess and check and find it, but you have to be able to solve those equations, write those equations, and then solve those equations. You need to show you can prove the answer. So what we do is we use, it's called a let statement. Okay? So I'm going to let x is going to be my first number. Okay? So that's going to be my first number. That's my smallest number. It says find two consecutive integers. Okay? So now I need another let statement. L-E-T. And this time I'm going to say x plus 1 is going to represent my second number. Now the reason I'm saying x plus 1, let's go back to those consecutive integers. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and so on. If I'm saying number 1 is my x, what do I have to do to the x to get to the second integer or the next consecutive integer? I would have to add 1 to it. Okay? So now I'm going to put these together. I have x, let me get a new x plus 1. So remember, x represents your first number we're trying to find, and then x plus 1 represents the second number you're trying to find. And this handout says when I add them together, they're going to equal 75. So now remember the rule of combining like terms. So we have x plus x gives us 2x plus 1 equals 75. I'm going to need a new page. So let me just go back and rewrite that. So we have 2x plus 1 equals 75. So solve for the variable. So we're going to subtract 1. Then we get 2x equals 74. Okay? Now we want to divide both sides by 2. And x equals 37. So remember, x represents my first number. There's my first number. And if you look back at, we had x, and then we said x plus 1 equals our second number. So now I'm going to take the x, and I'm going to add 1 to it. So that's 38. Okay? So they are consecutive numbers, right? So there's my first number and my second number. Now I'm going to check it. If I take my first number plus my second number, it's saying it's supposed to equal 75. So if I take my first integer, my second integer, add them together, it equals 75. So it does check. So you're going to go back there and check it also. Okay? Next one, let's go to number 2. Number 2 says find 3 consecutive integers whose sum is 51. So they're consecutive integers, so we're going to make our let statements again. We're going to let x equal the first, x plus 1, I have to add 1 to get to that second one. Alright, and then we're going to say x plus 2 for my third number. Let's go back and see why. 1's not the answer, but I'm just going to use that as an example. So if I'm saying this is x, when I add 1 to it, I'm going to get to 2, right? So then I'm going to go back to x, and how many do I have to add to that x to get to that that third number? So x plus 2 gives me that third number, which would be 3. So now let's add them all up. So x plus second number plus the third number is equal to 51. So combine like terms, we get 3x plus 3 equals 51. Go to the next screen. 3x plus 3 equals 51. Subtract 3 from both sides. Get 3x equals 48. Divide both sides by 3. And x equals 16. So remember, the first one we had was x, so x is 16. Now if I take that 16 in and substitute it in the second one, meaning I'm adding 1 to it, I'm going to get 17. And if I substitute 16 into that third one, that says 16 plus 2, which gives us 18. So if I add all those together, I get 51. So 16 plus 17 plus 18 is supposed to equal 51. And I get 51 equals 51. Let's go on to number 3. Find 3 consecutive integers whose sum is negative 78. Okay? So we're going to do our let statements again. We're going to let x equal our first. Let x plus 1, because it's consecutive, is our second. And then let x plus 2 is going to represent our third number. So it says x plus 1 plus x plus 2, and the sum is supposed to be negative 78. So combine all your like terms, you end up with 3x plus 3 equals negative 78. I'll go to the next screen. You're going to subtract 3 from both sides. Oops, made a mistake, and I don't know where my eraser is. Let me just go to the next screen. 3x plus 3 equals negative 78. We're going to subtract 3. We get 3x equals negative 81. When we divide both sides by 3, we get x equals negative 27. Okay? So we said x would represent our first number. Our second number is represented by x plus 1, so I'm going to add 1 to that. That gives me negative 26. And then our third number we said is represented by x plus 2. So now I'm going to take negative 27 and I'm going to add 2 to it, and I get negative 25. If you take all 3 of those numbers and you add them up, they're going to equal that negative 78. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4, it says 2 consecutive even integers. So let's say, for example, these are even integers. Okay? So we're going to use to let x equal our first number. But think about this. If 2 were my first number, what would I have to add to x to get to that second number, the second consecutive even integer? You'd have to add 2, right, to get your second one. Okay? Alright, so now we're going to combine our like terms. So it says x plus 2, and the handout says it's supposed to equal 94. So combine like terms. Subtract 2 from both sides, and you get 2x equals 92. Let's go to the next page. So we have 2x equals 92. Divide both sides by 2, and x equals 46. So the first number is 46, and then if I go back, I said I've got to take that x and I've got to add 2 to it, and it's going to give me 48. If I add 46 plus 48, it's going to equal 94. So 94 equals 94. It balances. It's equal. Okay? Let's go on to number 5. Number 5 says find 3 consecutive even integers whose sum is 222. So they're even integers, so that means, you're adding 2 every time you go up. So let's say let x is the first. I say x plus 2 is the second one. And then x plus 4 has to be that third number. Think about where it starts, right? From 2 all the way to the third number. So now, combine like term, or write your equation up. X plus 2 plus x plus 4. And it's saying it equals 222. So I'm going to add them up. I get 3x plus 6 equals 222. Go to the next screen. So 3x plus 6 equals 222. You're going to subtract 6 from both sides. Then you get 3x equals 216. Divide both sides by 3. And x equals 72. So x is 72. X plus 2 would be 74. And then x plus 4 would end up giving me 76. So they are consecutive even integers. If I add them up, they will equal 222. Let's go to problem number 6. Remember, if this seems to be going a little too fast for you, you can stop and pause and catch up on it. Okay, number 6. Number 6 says find 2 consecutive odd integers whose sum is negative 116. So again, we're going to do our lets. X is going to be the first. X plus 2, because it's odd integers, is my second. And is that all they wanted? Let's see. Yeah, 2 consecutive. So we're going to say x plus 2 equals negative 166. Combine like terms. I'll rewrite this. 2x plus 2 equals negative 116. So I'm going to subtract 2 right where I'm doing that. So we get 2x equals negative 118. Divide both sides by 2. And x equals negative 59. Okay, so that's our first number. And then it says for the second number, we've got to take the x and we add 2 to it, which would give us negative 57. 2 consecutive odd integers, right? And if you add those two together, you're going to get negative 116. Number 7. Find 4 consecutive odd integers whose sum is 128. 4 consecutive odd integers whose sum is 128. My goodness. Okay, so let x equal the first. We're going to say x plus 2, oops, that didn't work, is the second. X plus 4 is the third. And then x plus 6 is going to represent that fourth number. Okay, so let's add them all up together. So we should have x for the first one, plus x plus 2 for the second one, plus x plus 4 for the third, plus x plus 6 for the fourth, and it's going to equal 128. So combine your like terms, 1, 2, 3, 4x, then your constants. All right, and now we're going to subtract 12 from both sides. $116, and then we're going to divide both sides by 4, and x equals 29. Okay, so let's go. So x represents my first number, so I have 29. And then the next statement for our second number, it says take x and add 2. So that's going to give you 31. For the third number, we said we're going to take the x, which is 29, and we're going to add 4 to it. So it gives us 33. And then for the next number, it says to add 6. So you're going to take the 29, you add 6, and it gives you 35. These are 4 consecutive odd integers, and when those odd integers are added up, they are equal to 128. Okay, number 8. Find 2